It's a hot summer day in 2006, 45 degrees Celsius, and I can feel individual beads of sweat oozing out of every pore of my body. I'm huddled under an acacia tree in what is now known as South Sudan. Despite the heat, I'm covered from head to toe, long pants, long sleeve shirt, a big hat, even a scarf, to fend off the relentless swarm of mosquitoes and flies eager to absorb moisture from my body. My job is to manage a $20 million development fund for the peace and reconstruction of South Sudan. I can remember sitting under this acacia tree, looking out over the horizon. I was really struck by the lack of any visible signs of technology whatsoever. And I don't just mean mobile phones, TVs, or cars. No permanent buildings of any kind, no roads with cement, no utilities. And I remember asking myself, how is it possible that this far into the 21st century, even the most basic rudimentary technologies can evade some parts of the world? That thought and the misery that it can create really stuck with me. So fast forward 10 years. I'm now a practicing business angel. I've been doing it for about 2 years. I was drawn to angel investing because of the promise of new technologies and the problems that it would help us solve. I started out strong as an investor, optimistic, really buying into the vision of individual entrepreneurs. But after seeing dozens and dozens and eventually hundreds of pitches, my enthusiasm began to wane. I looked around me. I was surrounded by some of the most active and creative investors, business angels, venture capitalists in all of Europe. But when I really looked at their portfolios, I had a hard time connecting with what they were doing, what the purpose behind it was. And as the entrepreneurs came in one after another, each time, less and less, it seemed to me that they were solving important problems. I was struck. Here are some of the most creative, ambitious people on the planet, and these are the problems they're trying to solve? We are a global population of 7 billion people, well on our way to 9 billion. We are steeped with real crises in environment, food and water shortages, environmental crises, biodiversity. These are huge issues. These are imminent threats, not to our lifestyle, but to life. These, along with other issues and other challenges, make us reflect. And I think in this generation, we will have to answer the question, can we, human beings, sustain life on this planet? How is it possible that we're trying to solve any problems except this? It was Winston Churchill who once said, "To get to your destination, you will never arrive if you stop and you throw rocks at every dog that barks." Well, we're throwing a lot of rocks. So how do we begin to think of these big challenges and how we can address them? Well, one way is through investment. And today I'd like to pause for a moment and reflect on what I've learned in my own experience. There's two kinds of funds that I want to talk about. The first are development funds. Development funds look at two investment criteria. The first is impact. They identify a very specific social or environmental problem that they want to solve. And the second is speed. They're very good at mobilizing resources quickly to affect those problems. In my case, we were given $20 million and 3 years to mitigate what was the impact of 22 years of civil war in South Sudan. We did this through a series of rapid peace dialogues. But we were expressly prohibited from investing in any kind of technology. Those were the rules of the fund. And I think while it's important that we be able to articulate impact, measure it, report on it, and while it's important to mobilize resources quickly, development funds will never be the instruments of sustainability that they're intended to be without technology. On the other side of the coin, we have venture capital funds. VCs also like to take two criteria into account. The first is client adoption. How quickly can we get customers on board? And the other is the sophistication of the technology itself. The question they ask is, how fast can I get to 1 billion customers? But at no point in their process of evaluating investments do they look at the impact of their technology. It's simply not part of the process. And when we talk about exponential technology, in particular, and this concept of fast customer acquisition and advanced technologies, conceptually, neither one of these can help us without an underlying and common purpose. So, I propose a new investment model for everyone to use. In order for us to address these huge, complicated problems, requires a tremendous amount of collaboration, cooperation, and focus. But I think they both have something to offer. So my proposal is that we take three elements. That we look at speed, we look at technology, and we look at impact. The overlay of these three are what I call transcendental technology. Now, transcendental technology is the idea that specific technologies can and do improve humankind. We can eradicate disease, eliminate poverty, alleviate hunger, if we focus. But too often we are distracted too easily. By focusing on the concept and the framework of transcendental technology, it requires all investors, inventors, entrepreneurs, to stop and continuously reflect on three questions. Number one, what is the technology that I'm working on? Is it the right technology? Number two, does this technology solve a problem of sustainability? And number three, will this solution solve the problem fast enough? If the answer to any of these is no, do I have the courage to stop what I'm doing and walk away in search of a new challenge? It takes a lot of effort and a lot of diligence to leave something that you've been working on behind, but that is the challenge that faces us at this point in history. Global killers are things that I think threaten all life equally. There's the very real possibility that the air we breathe, the food we eat, and the water we drink cannot sustain life on this planet. Any model for investment that we have, every model of investment that we have, must address these questions. The good news is that there are some positive examples in the world for us to follow. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, for example, in collaboration with dozens of private and public entities, have raised and invested more than $4 billion to eradicate malaria in Africa. Since 2013, they've made tremendous progress towards saving 500 million lives. Their solutions come directly out of the laboratory. Advanced, focused R&D on how to eliminate and eradicate one disease. Again, collaboration, cooperation, and above all, focus. That is transcendental technology in practice. There are dozens of other ideas like that, small and large, in all areas of environment, healthcare, biodiversity, food security. Each one of these are small seeds towards solving a bigger problem, but critical to the long-term sustainability of life. In some areas, like energy and healthcare, there are positive signs and good data points that say we might be on the right path. But in other areas, like biodiversity, food and water scarcity, we are very far behind. We must quickly identify and accelerate the rollout of technology from labs. We must increase the amount of resources we dedicate to them, and we must do it quickly. There is a natural phenomenon in the world that I think reflects our situation well. A seed needs 4 things to grow: It needs rich soil, it needs water, it needs air, and it needs sunlight. But there's one seed that stands out. This seed can exist in a dry pod for more than 1,000 years, yet still retain the spark of life. When we do plant it, it needs to be planted deep in dense mud. It never touches the air or sees the sun. It must be covered in several centimeters or even meters of water. Once planted, this seed may not bud for 1 or 2 years. But with a bit of patience, and if you watch the dark, dirty water where it grows, eventually the most amazing thing will appear. And as this bud unfurls itself, it would reveal a beautiful lotus flower. The lotus flower is a symbol of transcendence, and it changes entirely the landscape around it. Lotus seeds replicate quickly where they are planted, always seeking to expand their reach. I think this is a good time to reflect on our state and presence in the world right now. I think it's easy to think about the challenge of planting a seed in the mud, waiting for years to watch it grow. It's easy to be daunted by the challenge that presents. It's comfortable to plop down at the end of the day on the sofa, flip on Netflix, and disconnect for a while. But the fact of the matter is, the solutions to all of the world's problems exist right now as seeds. Some of the seeds are new seeds, new technologies, new ways of thinking, new ways of working. Some seeds may have existed for decades in dry pods. Some seeds are already planted, and our job is simply to nurture them and help them grow. And a few of us will have to have the courage to dive into the dark, dirty water and plant anew. But in truth, you never know where the next lotus flower will appear or what transcendental technology will take humankind to the next level. So please, whether you're an investor, an entrepreneur, or an inventor, ask yourself, what lotus seed can I plant and help to grow? Thank you.